May 18th, 2022. It's NBA Draft Lottery Day, and that also means it's time for the Knee Jerks, Detroit Sports Talk of Eno and Big Al. I am your sunburned host, longtime Detroit-based podcaster and blogger, Al Beaton. Joining me, as always, is the man who knows a lot of things about a lot of things, and I learned today has help, and it gets in his way of doing the podcast. You need to talk to your help, Greg, and that would be Greg Eno of the Out of Bounds blog and numerous other projects. Greg, you need to talk to your help. I'm telling you.
I tell you, my long guy shows up 15 minutes before we do the program, and I got to make everybody wait, including our guests. But that's okay. I'm sitting out here outside with smelling freshly cut grass, so it's all good. I'm Greg Eno from my WordPress Out of Bounds blog. You can read me there every week. You can check me out usually on Mondays there. Most recent piece was about the Tigers and how they have to finish this rebuild with some offense.
Yes,
you can also follow me on Twitter at Greg Eno and follow the Knee Jerks on Twitter at the Knee Jerks. A couple of really exciting things to talk about, not only about our guest tonight, who is sports photographer Gregory Seamus, who works for Getty Images, who's been on the program a couple of times. He's got a really interesting story to tell about playing the Masters and shooting sporting events during COVID and all sorts of, one of those in-depth conversations with Greg that one thing leads to another. But I also wanted to say that on May 31st, 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be joined for our official 13th anniversary program by our good friend Ray Scott. Ray will be with us on May 31st, along with City Hall, our basketball guru, Pistons and basketball guy, will join us on the 31st as well. I'm not sure if we'll have them both on the same segment or now. Maybe we might do two segments, but regardless, we'll talk basketball at that point. We'll be that much closer to the finals. The Pistons draft position, of course, is known already. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about all sorts of things NBA with Coach and with City. That'll be May 31st. Kenny Cal will be with us, but not till July. Kenny says, can I come on in July? Because at that point, we're going to we'll maybe know who the Red Wings' new coach is. We can we'll move about the draft and so forth. I said, sure.
It better not be Torts, but, we'll talk about it.
And so Kenny will be on July 26th, I think we decided. So not sure who we're going to have on in June yet. But so lots of things going on with in the guest world, if you will. Tonight, Seamus, as I mentioned, we'll also talk Tigers. We'll talk Lions. But before we do any of that, we're going to play a game we like to call Whose Birthday Is It, Maestro? Everybody knows how we play this game by now. I'll give Al a clue or two or three of an individual whose birthday it is today in the world of sports. And if you can correctly guess that person within the first two clues, you'll receive a case of Altus beer.
I'll have to make some room between the slits and the juries. All right.
Okay, Al, this person made his name in the world of football. I will tell you that. He was born on this date in 1934. He passed away sadly in 2014. He was a product of one of the state schools here, one of the two major state schools, and he was also one of these guys that always seemed to be around championships when he played, and he was a quarterback. I'll tell you that.
I'll just try Earl Morrall.
Yeah, and you've got Earl Morrall. Very good. Muskegon, Michigan, and Michigan State fan.
Michigan State, yep.
Yes. And Morrall was just one of those guys that just was always around. I mean, he was just always played for winning teams and always came off the bench. And, he was it was unbelievable.
He was. But he played with obviously made the Super Bowl with the Colts and the Dolphins.
Right. Yeah. And he just was, of course, the Lions.
And he was a Lion, too, if I remember correctly.
7 years. And somebody said, I can't remember who it was. One of the former Lions said, I can't remember who it was, said that Earl Morrall this former Lion, whose name I can't remember, said, I can't believe Earl Morrall was not our starting quarterback. Why he was always, trying to beat out guys like Milt Plum and who else he was trying to beat out. And because Earl, he said, was better than all of them. And I agree. Went to the Giants for a few years, and you mentioned the Colts. He came in for, did he start the game?
He started the Super Bowl for Giant Unitas, and then Unitas kind of finished the game. But Unitas at that point was, I think not the player he once was.
Right.
And was hurt, and then
Right.
then obviously the same thing with the Dolphins, their undefeated year, but he was replaced by Bob Greasy for the
Right.
Super Bowl, if I remember
Right.
correctly. So.
Right.
But yeah, he was always around good teams, winning
Yeah.
teams, and he was a winning ball player, as they say.
Right. Right. And so
and he had an awesome crew cut, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Right.
you could plumb bop off of that thing.
So good job there, and enjoy your Altus.
All right. Awesome. I can't wait for Slits. What was it? Altus. What am I thinking here? Oh yeah, I'm Slits, Altus, Stros, whatever. Yeah. All right. All right. So it's there's some conference rates here. So no more dilly dallying, and we can't be lollygaggers here. So. Greg, let's start with the NBA draft lottery because that literally happened. Oh, we can't even go into that yet. I'm sorry. Introduce our guest. Before I get all carried away here.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Gregory Seamus has been on the Knee Jerks. This is his third appearance. He is a professional sports photographer who shoots for Getty Images. And if you want to see his work, which is fantastic, by the way, just go to Getty Images.
Yes. .com
and search Gregory Seamus, or you can also find him on Instagram. You can really just Google him. He's got tons and tons and tons of just outstanding images called over the years at everything from Super Bowls to PGA events to baseball to basketball, you name it. He's hockey. He was the official photographer for the Penguins for a number of years. So he's going to be with us right now, and we'll play that recorded interview for you right now.
Boy, that was fascinating, because talk about, having a fascinating few years between having to navigate COVID as a sports photographer, going to Augusta National, actually getting to play the course and covering things like the Super Bowl. Like we were joking at the end there, how could he top all that?
Right. Yeah, I know.
But, yeah,
I thought it was stark when he was talking about all that piped in crowd noise at those baseball games when nobody was in the stands.
Thinking back on just how weird those couples, especially that first season, was with nobody in the stands.
Right.
And in some ways, I have a feeling sports will never ever be the same for anybody, media, fans, teams, players, athletes, whatever. It's just he
did talk about that. You asked him that question, and he did talk about how maybe that they kind of discovered almost by accident or not, certainly not on purpose, some efficiencies.
Yeah. Did they really need 12 photographers there, for example, when they seem to cover the Super Bowl 5 and 6?
And do the writers need to traipse down to a locker room when they could just do a Zoom press conference?
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's and like I said, we're not out of the woods yet in any of this stuff. No. And like I said, I'm going to be flying in a couple of weeks. I didn't tell you, but I'm going to Florida to see my dad, and I'm just curious to see since I believe there's no mask mandate on airlines right now. I have no idea if they changed back or not. I'll just say I will be wearing a mask because I don't trust people. So anyway, we'll
flying to Florida as well in a few weeks for business.
Oh, well, we'll have to compare notes. I'll be down there at the same time.
Well, I'll be in Orlando June 6th, 7th, and 8th. I'm definitely going to be wearing a mask on the plane.
I'll be in the area because I'm flying into Orlando on the 1st, and I'll be in Barefoot Bay, which is about an hour south. So we'll talk about it. We're always surprising each other here. All right, Greg.
Yes.
All right, let's get to brass tacks here. We need to talk about that. While we were talking to Greg, the NBA draft lottery went down, and the Pistons, much like Red Wings luck in draft lotteries, they fell 2 spots. Going to end up picking 5th in the NBA draft. I believe I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe OKC and Sacramento leaped into the top 3. And Orlando got the top pick. Orlando and Houston stayed in the top 3. The Pistons were the other team with the most ping pong balls. They fell to 5th. So obviously there's a consensus top 3 prospects. In some ways, I'm kind of glad the Pistons didn't get the number 1 pick. So now we don't have to argue about Chet Holmgren for the next several weeks. Thank God. But it looks like there's consensus top 3, and then after after that, there's a gaggle of ball players. It doesn't seem to be a consensus. Well, last year's draft, Greg, really turned out to be kind of a unicorn because there's like 5 or 6 ball players who all could have been Rookie of the Year any other season. Obviously, the Pistons got one of those, and Cade Cunningham. And it looks like that pick's going to be great. But now it's going to be a little more interesting in that, picking 5th. I think they're talking players like Jordan Ivey of Purdue, for example, a shooting guard, things like that. I have no idea where they're going to go with this, but I just had to bring this up, 1, because it just happened. 2, I hate draft lotteries. I think they're bullshit. And 3, I didn't want them to take Chet Holmgren anyway, so I'm happy. So I guess that's about where I fall on a draft lottery. And obviously, we'll know more because I believe the NBA is holding their combine as this week, as a matter of fact. So we'll know a lot more about who the Pistons might be interested in over the next few weeks. But at the very least now, Greg, at least we don't have to hear any more about Chet Holmgren because the odds are he's going to be gone by the time the Pistons pick.
Sure. It's funny, though. You and I grew up at a time where if you had the number 5 overall pick, you were going to get a damn good player.
You were almost guaranteed a damn good player. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm scrolling Twitter right now, Pistons Twitter, and they're not heartbroken, the fans at 5, but they're all, I'm disappointed, and I hope we can get a good player. I'm like, wait a minute now.
Oh my God! Yeah, it's like, oh my God, we'll have to take a guy who played 3 years in college.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I know that it just seems like the players that are supposed to be franchise transcending players anymore, that window keeps getting shorter. At first it was like, okay, get a top 10 guy, you should get a franchise player. And now it was starting to get in the top 5 or 7. Now it's like, if you're not in the top 3, it's like, forgive me, the draft it may as well just not even draft a player. I mean, it's like, I don't know why that is, because certainly the NBA is not made up of stars who are only top 3 picks. I mean, that's not the case. But for whatever reason, that seems to be the consensus, that if you don't get one of the top 3, then you're going to be drafting a project, which I just find maybe because Al, you made a joke about it, but maybe it is because these kids are so young that once you get past the top 3 and you're looking at 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, and 20 is even old now, then you say, well, geez, maybe these are projects after you get past the first 3. But regardless, I think you should still get a pretty good player at 5. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, they should. They're going to get a rotation player. That should be the lowest expectation. Is get yourself. And we just have to remember that, if there was a redraft of a draft of him a couple years ago, Sadiq Bey would be probably be a top 5 pick in that draft now, for example.
Right.
So. And Beef Stew would probably be a top 10 pick. So these things are so fluid, and as you said, these kids are coming out so young anymore. It's like if a guy plays all 4 years in college, he's a second round draft pick anymore, because that's essentially, it's so much based on potential and if a team can mold a player into what they need him to be. They're not getting finished products anymore. I mean, I guess the Pistons were pretty damn lucky in that they got a pretty nicely finished, I won't say finished product, but a high-level product in Cade Cunningham, who and he only played 1 year of college, obviously, and looks like his upside could be the moon. But so many of these guys, I mean, when you look at Holmgren, Jabari Smith, and Banchero, they seem to be the consensus top 3. Holmgren is he's essentially, he could hide behind a fence post. That's how skinny this kid is. He's what, 7 foot 180, something crazy like that.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I don't. They say, oh, he's got skills. He can shoot a 3. It seems like a stiff wind could blow him away, and it's giving me Sean Bradley vibes. Even though he's probably a more mobile Sean Bradley. And these other guys, Smith and Panchero, completely unproven, 1 year in college. I don't know, Greg. That's why I try not to get too uptight about where you finish in a draft, because you have to have confidence in your front office being able to deal with wherever they land. Iserman was the same way when the Wings, like with last year when the Wings fell when they fell in the draft lottery, and like Eisman's like, I can't be upset. I'm prepared. We knew this could happen, so we had to prepare for this. And these guys know what the odds are. The odds are the Pistons weren't going to get a top 3 pick. They were likely going to end up in around the area they did, and that's what happened. So now it's just up to the Pistons front office to do their job and find a running mate for Cade Cunningham. And I have the confidence that they probably should be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree. We talked before about the kind of the blind faith almost that the Lions fans have in
that's out of control right now. It really
Brad
is.
Holmes, and there's kind of the same thing going on with Troy Weaver with the Pistons.
Yeah.
There's a lot of buzz about him and about the way he's building the team, and of course they've got some money now that's freed up because they're finally out from under the Blake Griffin contract, and so they got some money. Although, albeit it's not a great free agent class, but there could still be some serviceable. You mentioned rotation players with the draft. There certainly could be some rotation players that they could sign as free agents.
Yep.
But there seems to be the feeling is that in Troy we trust, and he'll make it work. Whoever he drafts at 5. And there won't be any. He won't get cute with it. He'll just pick whoever he feels is the best guy, and away we go. But the Pistons. This is the back end now of the rebuild, and this is where you shouldn't have to rely as much on the draft because the bulk of the roster, I would think the core of the roster, especially if they sign Marvin Bagley III, which I presume they will. Is really kind of set. I mean, whoever they bring in at number 5 is probably not going to start unless barring something, barring an injury or something unforeseen.
Mm-hmm.
But I was talking with City Hall, our resident NBA expert. I said, "Do you think they'll trade Jeremy Grady?" He says no. He says that he feels the Pistons are going to run with what they have plus the pick, and away we go. So I think things are pretty much to the point now where it's just a matter of these players getting better. They're still young, but growing together. And I don't know that you needed to necessarily, not that of course you'd love it if you got the top 3 pick, but I don't think that's as crucial as it was last year when they got the number 1 overall pick, because that was the time when they really, not that they had whiffed on Killian Hayes.
Mm-hmm.
That was at a time where it was potentially they had whiffed on him. I don't think they have. I think Hayes is going to be okay, and I think he had a much better season than he did his rookie year, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was a very integral for the Pistons to do well in the lottery last year. Yeah, and they did.
You can't miss on the number 1. You just cannot miss on the number 1.
So now they have insert another young player in there in the mix, but I don't think this player is going to be starting anyway, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah, and for Hayes, if he turns out to be a very good backup point guard, I'll take it. You need good backup point guards. It all depends if he can shoot or not, but we'll see where it all goes. But it's now at least now we know, and it takes some and obviously now where the Pistons fall in the draft, that could change their plans with how they're going to manage the roster. When it comes to making trades and things like that. You're completely correct about that. All right, let's move on to the Tigers, Greg. As it's a streak, even though I think that streak might be ending tonight. They're playing in Tampa as we speak. But after starting the season 9-23, Greg, and hitting damn near rock bottom when they lost 4 of 5 at home to the A's, and the A's are a consensus bottom 3 team. That was just all that the Tigers did manage to bounce back by beating another consensus bottom 3 team. They beat the Orioles, taking 3 from them at home. And then thanks to a Harold Castro, of all people, home run last night, they won game 1 of their series against the Rays. So they had a 4-game winning streak going into tonight. Yay! Right. But other than but I think there's some caveats here about that bad start, Greg, and that, one, they did play a very tough schedule. They played some very good teams that are expected to contend for the playoffs. Now it's eased up because they've had the A's, we've had the Orioles. Other than the Rays, who they were playing, I think, today and tomorrow, over the next month, they're going to spend playing nothing but under 500 teams, and the vast majority of that is going to be against the Guardians and the Twins. They're playing a lot of AL Central teams. So if the Tigers are going to try and fight their way back to 500, and they're going to have to play close to 600 ball to do it, this is the next 4 weeks is going to be the time, because the schedule is finally falling in their favor.
Well, it did seem like, whenever you're going bad, it's one of those things where every batter, it seems like, is an 0-2 count. It seems like every pitcher is Cy Young. It seems like every team you play is hot or is good or is a playoff contender. It just seems like it all piles up on you when you're going bad. That's just the way it seems. When you're going good, you don't care who you're playing. You don't care if you bring on the Astros, bring on the Yankees, bring on the Twins, whatever the case may be. But when you're going bad, it just, you look at that schedule and says, oh, geez, now we got to play these guys. Now we got to play these guys. I think what was demoralizing, though, was losing 4 out of 5, at home to Oakland. You mentioned Oakland, I think, had a 9-game losing streak when they came into town, and they got healthy here.
Right.
So, but that's what Jimmy Leland always used to say. He says, it's not who you play, it's when you play them. And I remember last year in April, the Tigers went into Houston and swept the Astros in Houston. And we all know how good the Astros are. It ended up being, they got off to a slow start, the Astros did last year. And they, of course, picked it up and ended up doing what they usually do. And so, I mean, it is, a lot of it is just, and the other thing that Leland would say, was momentum is tomorrow's starting pitcher. And, you don't carry over wins. You don't carry over, winning streaks in baseball, it just, things go your way for a little while. But they are flickering a little, showing a little bit of sign of life. Tonight's game notwithstanding, flickering a little sign of life. Guys who are woefully underperforming, starting to pick it up a little bit. Still not good overall. Baez not good overall. Scope not good overall. Torkelson is doing the expected rookie struggles. Robbie Grossman not the same hitter as he was last year. Even Austin Meadows, who was their best hitter maybe for the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, he's run into some vertigo issues, and even when he was going well, had not hit a home run, by the way.
Right.
And then he was supposed to be a power hitter. So it's just one of those, it's just weird. It went 32 games with everybody collectively going into a funk. And really the only guy, I wrote in my piece on Monday, the only guy that really has been consistent has been the 39-year-old Miguel Cabrera. He's been like maybe the most consistent of all the hitters. Still not MVP caliber, of course, but he seems to be getting timely hits. The power seems to be coming back a little bit. He's getting around on fastballs. He's driving in runs. He's doing what he can, but he's 39, and that's not the future, obviously. So they've wasted a lot of good pitching. Their defense has been awful. They've kicked the ball around a lot in the first month of the season. But it is a long haul, and even the Twins, who are leading the division, it's not like they're playing 700 ball. They're like 4 or 5 games above 500. They're not running away with the division by any stretch of the imagination. The White Sox, who I still think will win the division, is starting, they're starting to right their ship a little bit. It's just, they just collectively, Al, went into a funk that you just don't see. I mean, they started 2 years in a row, 9-23, 2 years in a row. That's almost unheard of to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And something to keep in mind is that they've managed to keep the pitching afloat despite the rotation being decimated with injuries. I mean, after you get past Rodriguez and Skubal, they've been running essentially they were running 3 rookies out there in Alex Faedo, Bo Brisky, and Joey Wentz. Wentz got hit pretty hard, but Brisky did pretty well in his first 2 starts. He got hit hard tonight, and we'll find out. Faedo pitched very well yesterday, so we didn't get the win in the game. But yeah, even Michael Pineda, who they brought in as kind of insurance to be a kind of a 5th starter guy, looked okay. Then he got hit by a liner, busted finger. Who knows? He's going to miss a few weeks. So they are really, the rotation really has become Rodriguez and Skubal, and then whoever's available, and maybe throw in a bullpen game here and there. It's between it, they really are kind of treading water pitching wise. They're doing okay. It's, as you wrote earlier this week, it's all about the offense this year. If they had any kind of offense at all, they would be I wouldn't say they'd be a 500 team, but we wouldn't talk about another historically bad start. I mean, Akil Baddoo, for example, was a prime candidate to regress.
Yep.
And he did in a big, big way. I mean, when he was sent down last week, he was slashing 140, 218, 220, a 220 slugging percentage. Oh, my God, it's awful. And it says volumes that right now, you mentioned Miguel Cabrera. The other two hot hitters on the team are the Castros, Willi and Harold.
Yes.
And those on a good this team was expected to be better this year. It was entirely anticipated that these two guys would at the very least either be your 24th, 25th type player or spending a lot of time in AAA. Yet here we are because of a combination of injuries and ineffectiveness. These two guys are playing every day. And if you're playing Harold Castro every day, you got issues, especially on offense. Because say what you will about hitting Harold. He's a singles hitter. He's not going to hit for power. And Willi Castro, I think that's just he's a 4A player on a hot streak right now. So we'll just see where it all goes. But yeah, this is a team that is, there's signs that they could be getting out of the funk. But if they can't overcome the pitching injuries, they need the offense to really pick up the slack. And I'm beginning to wonder if they got guys capable of doing that. I mean, guys, are the guys who we thought might have regressed going to continue to regress? Is someone going to step up? I really don't know, and I'm not confident that we will see it on offense this year.
Well, that's the thing. In my piece on Monday, I said, really, even if these guys do perform to their baseball cards and to their resumes, they're really not all that great. I mean, there's not really anybody in that lineup that scares you. Maybe in time, a kid like Torkelson, a kid like Riley Green will.
Yeah, those got to be your impact players because they don't have that right now. Those
now, maybe in a couple of years, those guys will indeed be those big thumpers. One who bats right, one who bats left, and maybe they will indeed be the middle of the order and kind of carry that lineup. But if you look around, they don't. They're just a bunch of scrappers. There's not anybody out there that they throw out there that really strikes any fear in you. And I know that pitching, the Tigers seem to have gone very pitching heavy in their drafting over the past, 5, 6, 7 years, and not so much on big time bats, except when they almost had to with Torkelson when the number 1 overall pick, when he was the consensus. Green at number 3 in 2019. Other than that, they've gone heavy on arms, and I think we're starting to see maybe some of that's coming home to roost a little bit because the arms are fine, but they are so volatile. And that's another thing I wrote, and they're so prone to injury. And when they do go down, Al, it's not like a Victor Reyes who goes out and maybe pulls a hamstring. He's out for maybe 2 weeks. 3 to 4 weeks, maybe, depending on if he has to do a rehab stint or whatever. Some of these guys, they get hurt. These pitchers, they're out for a year and a half. I mean, look at Spencer Turnbull. The Tommy John surgery is going left and right with Tommy John surgery.
Alex Faedo missed essentially 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's so when these kids, you draft them as these young big arms when they're 18, 19, 20 years old. You may not see them at the big league level until they're 25. And even then you got to hold your breath because look what's happening to Casey Mize right now. I wouldn't be surprised in the least if he's another Tommy John candidate. I would not be surprised in the least, which means we won't see him back until 2024. So that's what's so scary about putting all your eggs in the pitching basket. And the Tigers just have kind of neglected. Now, I know they've got Cody Clemens, for example, their second baseman of the future. Well, did you know that Cody Clemens is 26?
Yeah, I was going to say, he's not their second baseman of the future. Yeah, I think the fans are trying to make it happen, but he's not at 26.
He's 26.
Essentially, if he makes it, he's a role player utility guy. He's not going to be a difference maker at the big league level. It's just not going to happen.
Ryan
not at 26,
Kreidler,
especially.
I'm not sure how good Kreidler's going to be in the outfield.
Dylan Dingler, and he's out for months with a broken hand anyway.
Yeah, right. Then you got Dylan Dingler, who's
kind of stalled at double. I think is he still at double A? I couldn't even tell you right now.
I don't know. And then of course Jake Rogers, who also
he's kind of. he's treading water. He hasn't taken that next step.
Well, the catcher of the future was supposed to be Jake Rogers for a
and we
time,
won't see him till next year.
Right. So they're just not high octane. They're just not.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the free agency tracker before I wrote that column, and I was hoping I was going to be able to see some names that would be available this winter or even next winter that could really help the club. But Al, a lot of those guys that are on that free agency tracker are in their mid 30s or at least at the early 30s, and they're not difference makers anymore. All the really good young hitters are locked up with their teams. If they're all locked up, and the guys who are in the prime are all locked up. You could shop the bargain bin and get a guy that's 34, 35 years old. There's no big name, really big name that's out there that's going to be a free agent, at least, and the ones that are play shortstop. It's like, okay, what are they going to do? They may have to, and then another thing I said is they may have to trade their way out of this. They may have to package some people, including, I even suggested it. I said, would you trade Tarek Skubal for a thumper, a big bat, a huge bat in the middle of the lineup? That's a decision that the Tigers are not. They typically don't make those kind of trades, but that's a question that you may have to ask. Is like, if a team comes, if I want to grab forget free agency, if I want to try via trade to get a really big bat in the middle of our lineup to take the pressure off Green and Torkelson, am I willing to give up a guy like Skubal? I would say yes, because I just think like anymore, your starting pitchers, Al, are basically have been reduced to 5-inning guys, and you do the bullpen from the 6th inning on anyway. And if I can pry a big bat, now I'm not saying necessarily do it straight up. I'm not suggesting you could trade Tarek Skubal straight up for a big bat, but if you packaged him, if a team was like thinking about a trade and said, would you guys be interested in trading Skubal? I would say yes. I would. Yes, I would. Nobody's untouchable, including the pitchers, because you trade. I just don't think we're in that era, Al, where you've got where any starting pitcher, unless you're named Justin Verlander and maybe a couple other guys, maybe after that. Other than that, I don't think there's any pitcher in baseball who would be considered untouchable on any team, because of the way that this game is going now. I don't care. I don't want to hear anything about the dead ball and the ball's not traveling as far. Offense still wins. You look at the standings. Every team now that's averaging about 5 runs a game or thereabouts is either leading the division or is in second place, because that's what's winning right now. The Tigers have a 3.42 ERA, which is outstanding, and should place them. It's 5th in the American League, but unfortunately, their hitting is dead last in the American League. So that's why you see the record is what it is.
Yeah, I would not be surprised. Like 2 years from now, we hear Jackson Jobe is being dangled for a bat. Their first round pick from last year, who was a high school pitcher, who if he does make the bigs, probably won't be for about 4 or 5 years. So that's a great point that the Tigers and Al Avila, if he manages to survive after this year, we'll see. Because if his seat isn't hot, it should very least be warm after the start. That he's got to make some moves other than finding placeholders and league average players in free agency and then drafting number 1 draft picks and hoping they all pan out. There's got to be some strategy here. As you said, that strategy is likely going to have to be trading arms for bats, and we'll have to wait and see if he can pull it off. But you were right on with that.
Well, you can't. Unfortunately, sadly, you just can't go out and buy a big bat right now, because there are no big bat available. I linked in the column. I linked the free agency tracker, and I defy anybody to go there and find me a big bat that's available in 23 and 24 who would really be a difference maker, who's not 38 years old.
Exactly. So it's oh my God, Tigers. All right. Let's touch a little bit on the Lions, Greg. I'm going to try and do my best Navin R. Johnson impression. The new schedule's here. I don't think I got quite Steve Martin-ish there, but I just love that phone book scene. He hates cans, but anyway, As always, the NFL has kept themselves above the proverbial fold. This past week, it was because of the schedule release, which is absolutely ridiculous. I could give a crap as to, the actual mechanics of the schedule, because we already know who the Lions are playing anyway. All this gave us was dates and times, essentially.
Right.
And what's interesting is 13 NFL teams have the maximum 5 primetime games this fall. And just for posterity's sake, 11 of those teams made the playoffs. And one of those teams, the Broncos, who did make the playoffs, had a winning record, and plus they made the biggest trade of the offseason by getting Russell Wilson. So there is some precedence there. But the one team, Greg, who didn't get a single primetime game is the Detroit Lions, which brings up the old Detroit versus everybody meme. The Lions were the only team to not have an evening primetime game. The NFL admitted during a press conference or, media availability with Detroit media that it looks odd, but they gave the excuse that, well, the Lions get Thanksgiving Day every year, which is going to be against the Bills, a very good team. And that is one of their most viewed games of the season. It's usually second or third highest viewership every year. So that was their excuse. So obviously the fans get all worked up about that. But I really like Dan Campbell's response to this, Greg. He probably had the best take of all. He said, it's awesome. You knock the games out. You go home. You get ready for the next opponent. You're not waiting all day at the hotel. You're not waiting all night. And then you go up, and now you're on a short week, it feels like. Essentially, since I think almost every Lions game is either, 12:30 or 1 o'clock. So athletes, everybody loves a routine. And I have no problem at all with the Lions having a ton of 1 p.m. games on a Sunday. I think that's freaking perfect, if you ask me. Mm-hmm. Who wants to stay up till midnight on Sunday watching the Lions lose a game? Or midnight, even worse, on Monday night watching them lose a game, or Thursday night losing a game. Right. No, I have no. I find this. Oh my God, he didn't get a primetime game. A bit dramatic but then again, the Lions fan base is really good about being dramatic about shit. But yeah, this is a bunch ado about nothing, and I love it personally. I love that I'll have 17 weeks, let's say, at 1 o'clock on Sunday, or at least that one Thursday at 12:30. I'll sit down, the Lions will play, and at 4 o'clock I can go about my day. And I think that's perfect, if you ask me.
You hit it so well when you said that, why would you want to stay up till midnight to watch the Lions lose? That's what it reminds me of, these people who are, playing this persecuted Detroit thing, complaining about this, when they're the same people who would be on Twitter, just like you just said, and would say at 11:15 when the Lions are losing 24-10 on national TV, why did I stay up to watch this? Or I can't believe I'm watching this. Or I can't believe the NFL is putting the Lions on national TV. The same people who are complaining about not getting a primetime game are the same people that would be complaining when they do get a primetime game that they're getting their butts handed to them. But I'm with you. I love Campbell's response, and I think this is one of the reasons why that he is endearing himself to not only his players but to media and just NFL observers in general. He has these maybe fresh takes is kind of maybe going overboard, but he has these takes that are not the norm. He's not. He didn't come out with some canned thing about
disrespect or something.
Well, not even that. He didn't even say things like, "Well, we'll show them," or he came out and just said, "Look, I love this because like what you just outlined, what he said about you play the games, you get them over with. You're not sitting around a hotel all day." He pointed out things. He pointed out things about primetime football that I hadn't really thought of from a coach's perspective and even from a player's perspective. We think of it as from the fans' perspective. You get excited, you make some popcorn, grab some beer, you got to sit down at 9 o'clock and watch a football game. But his perspective was a little bit. Hey, no, I like this 1 o'clock Sunday thing. I think it's perfect. You get into a rhythm, and I hadn't really thought of it that way. And I think that's one of the reasons why, he's just different. He's just I call him a meathead, but almost I call him that in an endearing way. Because he's just not. He's just a different kind of a coach. He's a football guy, but he's a different kind of a coach, and I think that's what. That's what it was so refreshing to not hear that same old, line about, well, we'll show them, and this is just going to fire up my team even more. And or he didn't say any of that. He said, look, this is fine. This is completely fine.
And if you're that upset about it, if the Lions play well, they could get flexed into a night game the last couple of weeks of the season anyway. And if that happens, then the Lions had a great year anyway. So, but yeah, it's much ado about nothing. And I love routine as much as the next guy when it comes to my sports. I've always loved the rule. All sports should either start at 1 p.m. or 7 p.m. Eastern. I don't care if it's being played across the world. That's when it should start. So I'm really with Dan Campbell on this one.
Yeah.
All right. One more thing before we wrap up, Greg. We should mention the death of Bill Lanier. I know we'll probably talk about this a little bit more when we have the coach on, but we do have to mention that that Bill Lanier passed away. I think he was only 73. One of the greatest Pistons of all time, a Hall of Famer, eight-time All-Star.
Bob Lanier.
Yes.
You scared the crap out of me when you said Bill Lanier. Bob Lanier.
Oh, I thought I thought it said Bob Lanier, but yeah, Bob Lanier.
You said Bill Lanier. I said, oh my God, what happened? Okay. Okay.
But
I thought like breaking news or something.
73 years old. Number one draft pick, 1970. Actually, I think he won he was the All-Star MVP in 1974. Then was traded for the immortal Kent Benson and tried to win a title with the Bucks and always came up a little bit short. But and also he will go down in movie history when his name was brought up by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the movie Airplane as well, which says volumes about what players thought of Bob Lanier. Bob. Yeah, now you got me all flustered by the Dauber. How about I just call him the Dauber? And which was his nickname. But the Dauber was a highly respected ball player, and there's always going to be a what if with him, Greg, because he had a chronic knee issue after he tore up his knee in the NCAA tournament before the Pistons drafted him when he played at St. Bonaventure. But great ball player who died far too young. And obviously, I'm sure Ray Scott will have a lot to say about that.
Oh, absolutely. We'll definitely talk about that with Ray. But yeah, the thing that I think struck me about Lanier was the things that were said about him in terms of how he was such a great ambassador, which he was for the game. Right. After he retired, he worked for the NBA for years. He worked with kids. It worked with anybody who would go overseas. I mean, he was a big help to the commissioner, whether it was Adam Silver or David Stern. Big help to the commissioner's office. You mentioned his knee problems, and certainly he was a warrior. He gave his heart and soul to the Pistons. Never wanted to leave, but he got to the point where he just had to go because the team was so bad, and he just was trying he just wanted to get a championship, and you can't blame him. And he had some very good play on some very good Bucks teams, and they just couldn't quite. They always got beaten by the 76ers in the playoffs.
The Saints and the 76ers were at their peak, exactly.
And here's the other thing too. Lanier only played like 4 full seasons for the Bucks, but his number was retired by the Bucks. And when you look at the history of the Milwaukee Bucks, a lot of the great players that they've had, albeit they've only won a couple of championships, but all the great players that they've had over the years, starting with Jabbar, going through Oscar Robertson and Sidney Moncrief, and on and on and on.
Yeah.
The fact that Bob only played there for 4 years and still got his number retired is really says a lot. And he was a great outside shooter. That back in the time where you didn't have your center didn't do that unless you were Willis Reed. There were very few centers in the NBA at that time who could shoot a jump shot from more than 10 feet away. Right. He had to go through so much turmoil when he was here. That's the thing. I just felt so bad about his career here, is that he always was going through coaching changes or GM changes or and it was never any stability. And when they finally got that 52-win team in 74 with Coach told us the next year everybody wanted to get paid. They started bitching about their salary, and all that kumbaya that they had the year prior just all went away because everybody was all up for themselves. And they never could find Bob could never find any sort of stability, whether it was the coaching. The crowds were small at Cobo, and they were always, even with Dave Bing, they were just always one other player away. They were always playing 2 against 5 all the time. They never had that real third complementary guy who was really the third wheel, if you will. It was always either Dave or Bob, and everybody else was kind of a zero replacement war guy, okay, but not great.
Hey, don't insult John Mangelt like that. I love Crash Mangelt, but I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. If they had 1 or 2, they had even one other impact. It's the old Rule 3 in the NBA. You need 3 elite players realistically to make a run.
Right.
And they were always a little bit short. They always really were. But yeah, we'll talk a lot more about that when we have City and the coach on. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
All right, Greg, let's wrap things up. As it's getting, by looking at the camera here, it's getting dark around you. So Greg's sitting in the dark right now, so we got to get him inside. Greg, who's your jerk of the week?
You know what? I'm going to give my jerk of the week to the Toronto Maple Leafs. These guys cannot win a freaking playoff series.
Oh, that was glorious. That was glorious. Yes.
They are the kings of having, we thought it was bad in Detroit when the Red Wings would have these great regular seasons and go out usually in the first round. The Maple Leafs have taken that to another level. Now, of course, everybody knows they haven't won a Stanley Cup since Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy were still alive in 1967.
Right.
That's one thing. That's bad enough. But now I think now it's 0-10. They're 0-10 in their last 10 elimination games. They've not won a series.
They've lost in the first round 5 straight years.
I can't remember. I literally cannot remember the last time they won a playoff series. Those fans, I was watching Maple Leafs Twitter the night they lost Game 7. In fact, comedian John Wing, who we've had on the program, was a big Maple Leafs fan. And I messaged him. I said, the night before Game 7, I said, "Are you nervous about the Leafs?" He said, I'm not nervous. I'm resigned.
Yeah. That's the truth.
That was the game the night before Game 7. And it just, he knew they were going to lose. Every Maple Leafs fan in the world knew they were going to lose. Yep. And now, granted, they were playing the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. Yep. They weren't playing chopped liver. I get it. But they had home ice advantage, as they did last year. They
were the higher seed.
They had a 3-1 lead last year against the Canadiens, and when they blew that, and when you see what happened to the Canadiens this year, I can't believe that even happened. By the way, so I just, I know they're not going out there trying to lose. I understand that, but these guys, my God, you cannot tell me it's not in their heads when you go to that arena. I don't care where they're playing the games, Toronto or wherever, and they're not thinking about that specter. That's something, Al, that's going to hang over them. I don't know how you beat that. I mean, you're going to have to, and anymore, you play these first round series. It's not like the old days where you'd play a 60-point team in the first round. These first round matchups now, everybody gets 100 points anymore. And so these first round matchups, who plays a first round matchup against the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions? Well, that's the way it is nowadays. So I just, for what they're putting those fans through, it's almost a lovable jerk of the week. I'm not mad at them per se, but I just think they've got to pay some penance for this. So jerk of the week of the Maple Leafs.
Oh, I watched that Game 7. All I could do was laugh when they lost in overtime in a Game 7, and just seeing the schadenfreude from the rest of the NHL fan bases towards the Maple Leafs. Because you got to be honest, Greg, the Maple Leafs as a franchise do come off as awfully entitled for a team that hasn't won anything in countless generations, So I am completely with you there. So, all right, my jerk of the week. You remember a few weeks ago when I believe I gave it to Phil Mickelson for his comments about Saudi Arabia?
Yes.
Well, we're going back to that but with another golfer. This time it is the Shark, Greg Norman. This past week, Norman held a press conference in London to promote that the Saudis' first golf event.
Yeah.
And his quotes during this came off just, I think, maybe even worse than Mickelson's. And Mickelson's were bad.
I agree.
Norman, when asked about the murder of the journalist Khashoggi, Norman replied, here's the quote: "We've all made mistakes, and you just want to learn from those mistakes and how you can correct them going forward." Like, oh my, we're talking about murder. It's just a mistake, Greg. And then he was pressed about, he was asked about the Saudis, the Saudi state executing 81 people one day. And Norman said he wasn't going to dwell on it. I'm not going to get into the quagmire of whatever else happens in someone else's world, was his quote. I heard about it and moved on. This is what he's saying about murder.
I know. I know.
Then when pressed about the Saudis' harsh anti-LGBTQ laws, he said, I'm not sure whether I even have any gay friends, to be honest with you. Oh, my God. And it's the things he said was absolutely how can you just it's just flabbergasting, Greg, to how I guess I shouldn't be flabbergasted, because when you get to the level of golf and the level of money that Norman and Mickelson have made, is that they must live completely sheltered lives and come off, and if they get pressed on anything controversial, they don't know how to answer it. And if he could have just said, no comment, and would have came off much better than saying, well, they made a mistake murdering people. It's absolutely bonkers that they're putting these guys in front of the media and they're literally putting their feet in their mouth about this. It's absolutely mind-boggling that the first you had the Mickelson stuff, Greg, and they think, okay, we can handle, we'll handle it from here on out, and then they double down on stupidity, like Greg Norman not knowing how to handle this, and saying some of the most dumb, most offensive, stupid takes when it comes to human rights issues. So my jerk of the week is Saudi Arabia, Greg Norman, and the new golf tour for showing their true colors. It's sports washing, and you need to look past the actual golf and look into what's going on behind this. It's the Saudis trying to improve their reputation about the world, and thanks to people like Greg Norman, it's not working. So, I could not believe that when this happened. Oh my God.
Well, unfortunately, you mentioned Mickelson, and now Jack Nicklaus has gone MAGA, and
yeah,
I don't know.
I guess I shouldn't be surprised that a bunch of 60-something rich guys are.
Lou Holtz is
Lou Holtz is another lunatic. Yeah,
he's gone.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know.
Yeah. I know. Anyway, let's end on a high note, Greg. And once again, why don't you tell us what guests we have coming up on upcoming shows?
Absolutely. 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be joined for our 13th anniversary program by the aforementioned Ray Scott and City Hall. We'll talk basketball. We'll explore further the Bob Lanier connection with Ray and so forth. I'm not sure who we'll have on June 14th. We will have Kenny Cal on Red Wings Voice, Radio Voice in late July. We'll lots of time to talk about that. Maybe by that time, the Red Wings will have a new coach. We'll have a lot of other news with the Red Wings with free agency and the drafts. We'll talk with Ken about that on July 26th. Meanwhile, follow me on Twitter at Greg Eno. Read my WordPress Out of Bounds blog every Monday. Just Google Greg Eno Out of Bounds, and it should come up. And also, I want to thank my lovely wife Sharon for putting up with this every 2 weeks, and thank you, Big Al, for making Tuesday nights so gosh darn fun.
Yes, I want to give a shout out to Greg for sitting in the darkness tonight as we talk sports. Shout out to Linda, who was busy saving lives in the ER, who was enjoying her new lawnmower. She just loves her new lawn tractor.
Okay.
She was all excited. I got a text about, I mowed the lawn today. I'm a new lawn tractor. I'm so excited. Also, a shout out to.
My
goodness!
Thanks to Greg Shamus too. But I forgot.
Yes, I was just going to say that. I was going to say thank you to Greg Shamus for being on the show. As always, you want to listen to the podcast. We're available at all the usual podcasty places. If a podcast is carried by this item, you'll find us there, such as Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon Music, Deezer, Radio Public, the Knee Jerks